Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I'll tell you what, there's long been an industry that I've been fascinated by for the way that they think and the way that they view solutions. And that is, I'm going to say these words, it's going to sound very simple, but we're going to go deep in today's conversation. That is the product industry. People who work on products view products as solutions, and I think they're very intentional about their language because a product doesn't necessarily mean a business. They fully recognize the differences and how these all play together to bring real life solutions to the marketplace and move society forward. And that's why for today's interview and episode, we have gone out and found an incredible guest. The way that this guy approaches new product development, you'll see that he values the quality of products. He values the speed to market, which for all of us as entrepreneurs, we need to be thinking about these things. And he really values the process from start to finish of actually putting things into the world, not just ideas. So let me tell you all about today's guest. His name is Rami Ibrahim. Rami is an engineer and innovation leader. He has developed over 70 products from concept to long-term portfolio management. He holds multiple patents. He's generated over $250 million in sales from his products. The last 5 years he's spent as the global director of innovation at Halma, which is an FTSE 100 company. He's now the founder of Impossible Innovation, helping companies build even more successful products. We're all going to learn a lot, not only from the way that Rami talks about his work, but the way that he thinks in business terms and the way that he sees solutions coming to the marketplace. So I'm not going to say anything else. I'm excited about this one. Let's dive straight into my interview with Rami Ibrahim. All right, Rami, I'm so excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. I'm really happy to be here.
Heck yes. I didn't even say in your bio, but we have a few other things in common as well. We share a past in Boston, in Los Angeles. Obviously, we both love business. So to kick things off, take us beyond the bio. Who's Rami? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
For me, it all started when I was a kid. My dad's an engineer, and I used to watch him design things, and then he'd show me the things that he designed, and they'd be there. And to me, that was absolutely mesmerizing, right? I knew early in my life that I wanted to build the things that didn't exist. And then I've been fortunate enough in my career to have ended up in places where they wanted me to build impossible things, and building new products and bringing them to market and doing all these things. So that has taken me from Canada to Los Angeles to Europe to China to Asia. I've worked all over with all sorts of companies doing all sorts of amazing things, and I'm happy to share some of that stuff with you here today.
Yes, I'm so excited for that. And trust me, I'm going to pick into that brain because I love the way that you think. And even in your own brand, we're definitely going to talk about your own business today because I love the way that your business shows up in the world. And even the messaging, it's a very hopeful message about what's possible with product. But that's why I want to start with that very word first, Rami. You heard me tease it at the top of this episode about the way that your industry uses that word product. I feel like a lot of people think, a product has to be a business. Like I'm inventing the new Uber, and they view the product as the entirety of the business. What is product? Why is your industry so intentional about the way that you use that word?
So it's so intentional because the thing that you build itself, right, on its own is not enough. The product or the piece of hardware or the piece of software that you build, if that's all you're focused on, when you bring that to market, if that's all you've thought about, it will never be enough. And so the idea of building a product really starts way at the beginning of really focusing on what's the business problem that we're trying to solve for the customer. Not the technical problem, right? That's the second piece. But really, what is the business problem that we're trying to solve? So when I was at Do Engineering and we were building products for airlines, the question of what is the problem we're solving for them went from, we want to help them move people around easier and make the passengers happier, to no, that's not really where the focus is. The focus is on they value aircraft utilization much more. So really what we're trying to do from a product perspective is help them improve aircraft utilization. That's the business problem. How we do that is the product. And so the business problem yields the solution, and the technical problem yields the specs. And if you can't answer what the business problem you're solving is for the customer, then all you have are a bunch of specs, and they all look equally important, and then the product has no purpose, or has very little purpose.
Yeah, Ramy, I've never asked an engineer this next question. It's a quote that I've long referenced, and it's going to be even more fun to talk about this quote with you. And that is, you went straight to the customer, of course. And I love that, because what I found in all the conversations I get to have is every great marketer goes straight to the prospect, goes straight to the people that we're meant to serve. Here we are talking about product. You did the exact same thing with us here today. Think about the actual person or the business that you're looking to solve their real life problems. And here's the quote that I've never asked an engineer about, Ramy. I think back to that Henry Ford quote where he said, if I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Where in the process is an engineer like you who says, okay, I understand your problems, but I'm the one who's going to come up with the solution?
So that I love that quote so much, and I actually use it when I'm working with customers. So here's the reality: customers have no idea what they want. What they have a really good understanding of is what they need. And so my job as an engineer, my job as a product builder, is not to listen to what the customer says they want, but to uncover the need that they actually have. And in that quote, in that Henry Ford quote, the need is right there. What they wanted was faster. That's the actual need the customer had. They needed faster. How to achieve faster, that's our job as engineers, as inventors. So the idea is to go beyond what a customer says they want. Here's an example. I was working with a company. I was helping them build a new generation of oxygen delivery devices. So they're a medical company. And when we were doing the early kind of testing with customers, one of the things they told us was, don't touch the user interface. Make it the same, similar to all the other devices that people are used to, because we don't want to have to retrain. We don't want to have to re-explain to them. We don't want it to be unfamiliar. We just want the user interface to be the same. They were super clear about that, right? What we continued to do was uncover the need. Why can't you retrain? What is the problem? What are the issues there? And what came out of it is that they don't have enough staff. They don't have enough time, right? Hospitals are stressed already with all the million other things that they need to do. So what the team then did was we designed the user interface. We completely redesigned it to look like a mobile app, because people didn't need to be trained on using a mobile app. They already knew and were familiar with how to do that. When we did the initial screenshots and went back and showed them to customers, they were like, oh my God, that's exactly what we want. That's amazing. Even though that's exactly the opposite of what they said they wanted, right? So the trick is to not just take what the customer says at face value, dig deeper until you get to the real problem, and then you can come up with a solution that actually solves it.
Yeah, I love the way you strip that Henry Ford quote down, because you're right. I've never really paid attention to the solution was already there, even in that very basic quote of faster, which leads me to, well, in the quote, we're talking about a faster horse, whereas Henry Ford looked at that and said, well, I don't just want to improve upon a horse. I don't want to, modify a horse in any way. I want to come up with something completely new, which of course takes us to a big part of your industry and your personal work, which is innovation. And Ramy, I'll fully transparently call this out here on the air. I don't usually like buzzwords. I feel like everyone uses certain buzzwords way too much in the world of business. You're a rare case, and especially having gone through your website, having gone through your work, you love innovation. You see new, and I think that's what we need to call out when it comes to innovation. Talk to us about that newness, because even just piggybacking off the Henry Ford example, how do we decide when, we just need to improve upon something that already exists, i.e. a faster horse, versus we've got to go straight to the drawing board and start from scratch and come up with something entirely new?
So, okay, that's a really good question. And for me, I don't believe in building products for the sake of building products, and I don't believe in innovating for the sake of innovating. Building new products or deciding to innovate or deciding just to add one new feature has to all stem down and come back to alignment with the strategy for what the company is trying to achieve. So if our strategy is to just make a small incremental growth year over year, then the risks of taking big steps and big bets on innovation maybe is not needed, right? And then if an engineering team tries to do that, then you're at odds with the rest of how the organization is trying to work, and so that doesn't work. And the opposite is also true. So for me, when deciding what are we going to do, how are we going to plan out the product roadmap for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, where I start is always with what is the strategy for the company that we're trying to achieve and how are we going to grow? And then the products and the services that we build have to align to allow us to achieve that. They both have to stem, they both have to align. And so if we're planning on having an aggressive growth, if we want to double in size every 5 years, then I need to have products that are going to deliver on that are going to be aggressive in the market as well.
Yeah, Ramy, hearing you talk about these things, I'm a visual person. So when people talk, I typically visualize things in my head. And hearing you use terms like roadmap, I picture you truly as an architect. And here's exactly why, because it seems to me like when you're building a product, all of us as end consumers and kind of, quite frankly, an impatient generation is that we all want the result. We want that final structure. We want to see the building completely done. It just seems to me like somehow from your vantage point, you have both the patience and the technical know-how to say, look, this is what iteration 1 is going to look like. This is version 1, and we're going to go to market with that, and that's precisely where we need to be. But at the same time, you also have that bigger blueprint or roadmap, and you understand that. What's that process like? We always, again, coming back to buzzwords, we've all heard the term MVP before. It's something that in the business world we're all familiar with. How do you decide what that roadmap looks like along the way instead of just being part of our immediate gratification society?
So it does require patience, and it requires vision, but most importantly, it requires to have discipline. So when I start looking and thinking about a product roadmap, I don't think about products that I'm going to build. It's easy to get lost in that. So the way that I think about it is, what are the customer problem that I want to go out and solve? And what is the second problem that I want to solve? And what is the third problem? And then my product roadmap then looks like a cluster of problems that I will iterate on, rather than I'm going to build sensor A today and then sensor B tomorrow and then a third sensor and a fourth sensor, etc. So that's where I start. So, for example, when I was at Do, my mindset very much shifted from, hey, here's 3 products that I'm going to build, and they were all jetways, to because the point of the company was to help move people, right? That mindset shifted to the problem we want to do is automate the gate for airlines. So everything that happens at an airport gate should be automated. And once that problem was defined, then a whole slew of products and possibilities stemmed from it. So we built a jetway, we built an automated aircraft parking system, we built a gate information system that allowed everybody to see what was happening at every gate at the airport way before the concept of IoT and those types of things existed. So that's where it starts for me. And then the discipline part comes in. We're not going to boil the ocean all in one shot. We're going to find out what is the main value that we can provide a customer today, and we're going to provide that value. And it needs to be enough value for them to buy. And then the plan is to add features at a relentless rate. Whether it's hardware or software, it doesn't really matter. The idea is to then have relentless speed and execution.
Yeah, I love the way you articulate that, Ramy, because I feel like a lot of us, we have the tendency just societally and professionally to have a to-do list, whereas it sounds like you are not married to a to-do list of I need to do this project and I need to do this project. What I'm really hearing is when you approach anything, you are always solution-based, problem-focused and solution-based. And I think that it truly is a different way of thinking, which is why I teased it at the top of today's episode. I want to go into, it's something that I found a lot in the messaging of your company, which I love your brand, impossible innovation. There's so much good that you're putting into the world, and it's so clear how business oriented you are. Again, talking about the problems that you're solving, you actually think about your customers. I want to go straight to that word that you just used, which is we want to build all these features relentlessly, and you want to do it quickly. Speed matters, Rami. And that's why I've been so excited to have this conversation with you today, because I feel like in this generation, we have so many, heck, we're on the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. What's a better example of a lack of speed than Wantrepreneurs? They're sitting there measuring, assessing, analyzing, studying, learning, consuming content. They're doing all of these things. And so when I look at your business, Rami, you're not just about saving people money. You're not just about eliminating risk and new product development. You're not just about having great products. Speed is clearly part of your approach to it. Talk to us about that, because I feel like it's an undervalued asset that we all have in our businesses.
So hugely, Brian. I think the biggest strategic thing that you can do as a business, whether you're a startup or you've been around for 20 years or you've been around for 50 years, building speed into the organization is the single best strategic thing that you can do, because it means you can adapt fast, you can learn fast, you can pivot fast, you can execute fast, you can make a mistake fast and then fix it fast. Like, the speed is such an important part of not just what I do, but what I think every organization should do. When I was at AccuDynamics, one of the things that we struggled with our customers, we were a contract manufacturer. So customers came to us to build them the things that they've designed. And the way that it worked was they come to us for prototyping, and then if you make it, because everything that we built for them was FDA approved, once you're part of the FDA approval, you're locked in for production. But if you didn't get in on the ground floor during prototyping, you didn't make it into production and you missed out on all that revenue. Our problem was that we were slow in prototyping. We were really slow. We were like 12-week turnaround time. And I spent time with my customers understanding, okay, what is the real thing that you guys want to achieve here? And I figured out and understood what their development cycle looks like. And I told my team, we're going to cut down our prototyping time from 12 weeks down to 3. And everybody thought I was crazy. Everybody thought it was such a ridiculous thing to say. They're like, we were already struggling at 12. How are we going to get to 3? But we looked at the problems, we looked at our structure, we looked at the way we're going to do things. We decided to make speed a strategic initiative for us. We implemented Scrum in a manufacturing environment, in a prototyping environment, and we slowly, over the next 6 months, cut that down from 12 to 3. And the transformation that had on our ability to then service our customers, win new contracts. I mean, there were months where the prototyping team of 4 people was making just as much revenue as the company as a whole. So it became a huge driving strategy for us. And it doesn't matter whether you're providing a service or you're building a product. Speed is super important. Look at what Amazon has done to everything, right? We now expect everything to ship next day. We expect things to ship same day. And that's why they dominate. They constantly push the envelope of what speed means.
Yeah, it's true, to the point where as consumers, if I see something that is going to arrive in 4 days, I'm impatient at this point. I'll say, I'll just get it on Amazon instead, because it truly is. That's the level, set the expectation. Hearing you talk about speed, though, obviously it's something that I've already teased the fact that we're the immediate gratification society these days. We all want things immediately. So, Rami, my obvious question to you is why? Why are we so bad at being fast in the things that we're deploying into the world? Is it perfectionism? Is it just pure logistics? I'd love to hear some insights. Why is speed so hard?
Yeah, so this is, and because speed is such an important thing for me, and I've had the chance to work with like a lot of companies, right? I get firsthand view of where the issues are. There's a few things that affect this. One is the actual process that the company is using. So if their processes are slow, if the way they make decisions are slow, then the byproduct of that, everything happens slowly. That's one. The second part has to do with access to information. So you know how sometimes you have too much data that it becomes analysis by paralysis, right? The opposite is also true. When you don't have enough data, you're not really sure what decisions to make. And so you constantly push back the decision making because you feel uncomfortable with the risk at hand. So that slows things down. And then the third part is empowering the team. Is the team empowered to actually make the decisions, or does everything have to funnel all the way up and then funnel back all the way down? So these are all things that have to do with how fast and how quickly a team can implement things. Let me give you, this is an interesting example of how speed can have a huge impact on what actually happens. I was part of a big company group, and we had a company that did software for the fire industry, and they had a competitor. And the competitor was, their processes and their ability to implement new features was so fast that every time our company, which was the incumbent, which was the guys who were innovating with new ideas all the time, every time they came out with a new feature, the other guys would copy them within a week or two. And they had that relentless speed and the relentless ability to just take what was there and just duplicate it. And that became so disheartening for our company and our team that they had to go back and relook and retool how quickly they could make decisions and how can they actually bring ideas and features to market. So it's not just, it's structural within the whole organization.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way that you look at it. Again, Ramy, it's the engineer's mind in action for us here in today's conversation. Is you have an orderly way of looking at things. So much of it, I'm going to drop another quote here. I'm curious if you've ever came across it. It's an Abraham Lincoln quote where he says, if you want me to give a 5-hour speech, I'm ready to go right now. If you want me to give a 5-minute speech, I'm going to need 5 hours to prepare. And I've always thought that concept is so counterintuitive and funny, because that's the hard part, is stripping away so much of it. And here I was ahead of you and I hitting record together today thinking, gosh, Ramy probably has a long running list of like a million things that could be solutions in the world. But what I'm starting to appreciate is your ability to trim away all the excess, to trim away all of the noise, whether we're talking data, whether we're talking process. And it sounds like bureaucracy is layered into all of those things. You've worked at so many different companies, Ramy. And so it is about stripping all that away. What's your process look like for that? Because I've always imagined you product developers and creators having a whiteboard with a million sticky notes and putting more on as opposed to taking them off. Ramy, how do you start stripping all this stuff away?
Yeah, so that's a brilliant question. For me, the process that I use is simplify, simplify, simplify. Every product, every concept, every solution out there has 2 or 3 main features that provide the bulk of the value for the customer. And so the trick is to trim it down, working with the customer diligently to figure out where is the real value in what we propose to build for you. And then everything else becomes noise. All the other features, right, if they don't directly allow me to provide that value for the customer, then why am I building it? And so when you think about building an instrument that could possibly have 100 features, there's probably only 5 that the customer really cares about. Figure out what those 5 are. And the process that I use for that with teams, I call it the one slide MVP. It's forcing the team to describe their entire product on a single slide with no more than six words on the slide. And like you just said, just like that Abraham Lincoln quote, in order to do that, it takes hours, right? It takes hours to actually simplify it down to that simplicity. When I was working, there was a team that I was working with, and they were building an instrument that takes in light, analyzes it, and then provides some information on how to modify the light in order to be able to do high-speed photography. the team came out with like 30 different features, and they're like, every one of these is super important for the customer. Every single one. We're like, great, let's go out and test it, right? And we sat down and we diligently worked through, and we did a bunch of stuff and asking customers the right questions. What feature is the most important? What feature is the least important? What is the value of these features for you, etc. And then when we boiled it down, it came down to 3 main features: brightness, stability of the bulb, and the ability to run on DC power. That's it. That was the product. And so all of the other features were like, okay, well, why are we building these? And so you can take down something that is really, really complex and boil it down to where all the value for the customer is. And then you know that you're aligned to be able to sell that product because you hit the nail on the head. And then you didn't blow all your R&D budget building things that nobody really uses. I mean, think about it. How many features does Excel have that you've never used?
It's true, Rami. Hearing you talk about these things, these are not just product lessons and insights and knowledge. These are business lessons and insights and knowledge. And gosh, I would extrapolate that further and say, this is life. It's way too easy to complicate things. It is so difficult to simplify it, but that's where the treasure lies. That's where all of the good stuff is. And so hearing the way you think, I'm going to totally use all of this against you right now, Rami, and absolutely put you on the spot because you're also a fellow entrepreneur. You're not just doing this work. You are also building your own business. I love the brand you've created and launched into the world. Impossible innovation. Now I'm going to hold you to this high standard though, because I'm hoping that you're making things as simple as possible, that you're doing all the things we've talked about today. So talk to me about it. Someone coming from such an incredible professional career. Rami, you've done amazing work inside of so many different companies. What's life like as an entrepreneur now?
Life actually looks very, very similar to what it did like before. I'm just building my own service and product instead of building it for someone else. So I use all the same tools. I use all the same processes. When I started, I did exactly what I preach, right? Which is I went out, I talked to a load of customers. I figured out where the value proposition for them is. And then I launched my first incubator with companies before I actually designed the incubator, because I believe in sell first, build second. And I've been on this journey now where I'm constantly spending more and more time with my customers, understanding where the needs of their businesses are. And then I work backwards to what is the right thing that I should be building for them? What is the right service? What is the right offering? So, a little bit of plug here for my own benefit. One of the things that I heard over and over again from the customers that I worked with was one of the tools that I do, which is I just talked about a few minutes ago, which is the one slide MVP. They're like, we get so much value out of that. We get so much understanding of our features, which features are valuable, which features are not, where should we invest in the product, etc. That I was like, okay, let me take that and turn it into a masterclass just on its own. And so I'm going to be launching that in the next few weeks. And so I do this all the time. I spend time with customers. I work backwards. What should my product look like? And then I bring that to market, and then I test and iterate.
Yeah, I love that, Rami. And you're right. Absolutely practicing what you preach, because I want to get even more inside that entrepreneurial mind, because you're doing the exact same stuff that we're all doing in our own businesses. Again, these are just business life lessons of talking to your customers, figuring out their pain points. I want to ask you, Rami, what are some of those questions that you ask them? Because I imagine the simplest one is, hey, what are you struggling with right now? What are some of your pain points? But give us some of those real life questions that you're asking to potential clients and existing clients.
Yeah, so I tend to talk with either the CEOs of the companies or the VPs of engineering. Typically, are the people that engage with me, and the questions are tell me about the process that you take to build a new product. How long does it take? Can you take the last product that you built and tell me what the value proposition is for the customer without mentioning any features? What is the impact of the last product that you built on the company's business, on your customer's business? I ask them questions like, if you could have if you could have one thing removed from the process today that you think is slowing you down, what would it be? I asked them questions like, tell me about your company strategy and how does your product portfolio align to the growth that you plan for the next 5 years? And then I asked them probably the question that is really most important, which is, what are you hoping to be able to achieve from the new products that you want to build? And some people are able to articulate that, and some actually realize that, hey, we actually need to think through it a little bit more. And so sometimes that's where we start. It's what should we be wanting out of our products for the next 5 years? And some companies know exactly where they want to go. They just need help accelerating that process.
Yeah, Ramy, I'm going to call all of our listeners out here. I think that this is the Ramy challenge from today's episode. I'm going to pick on one question that you listed there, which is, talk to me about the values of your product, service, whatever it is that we sell, without mentioning any features. That's the first time I've ever heard that question, Ramy. That is incredibly powerful. I'll use myself as a terrible example in real time here of when I launched my first online course. I did what I saw everybody else in the marketplace doing, and I said, there's X number of hours of videos that you're going to get access to. There's 8 modules. There's all of these different lessons. Who cares? Who cares about any of those features? All they care about is those benefits. So Ramy, I'm going to start thinking of that as the Ramy challenge. It's so cool to get inside of your mind. And that's why I love asking this question at the end of episodes. It's super broad, Ramy, so you could take it in truly any direction you want. And that is your one best piece of advice. Not only are you the subject matter expert that you are when it comes to new product design and development and creation, all these things we talked about today, you're a fractional CPO, Chief Product Officer, for so many other people, but one very important label is you're also an entrepreneur. You're also one of us. And so with all of that in mind, what's that one thing that you hope to leave listeners with all across the world who are tuning in at all different stages of their business journeys?
I would say, if you want to build really great products that delight customers, products that will help you achieve the things that you want to achieve, and I'm talking specifically for the engineering teams out there, spend more time talking to customers and understanding their business. Not their technical needs, not the things they want you to solve. Understand how they do things, why they do things, what are their strategies, how do they make money. If a business is going to buy your product, they're going to have to write a justification for it. They're going to have to justify why they're buying your product over somebody else's. You need to be able to be in a position to write that for them. And if you can't, then we don't really understand what we're building. So if you're going to do anything, spend more time doing that.
Yes, Ramy, I'll tell you what, in a world where I expected you to come on here and talk about process flows and how we manage projects and all the technical stuff behind the scenes, to hear how people and solution focused you are, I think that reveals so much about the way that you think, the way that you see the world, and really the importance of the work that you're doing is you have never once lost sight of why it is that you're building products, why it is that you're helping teams do these things. So huge kudos to you. It's also just such a reflection as someone who's gone deep into all the work that you do and looking at your own company and doing my research ahead of our conversation today. It's just so consistent in all the things that you do. Is you love products, no mistake about it. I know that about you, and it's so evident in looking at your work, but you also love the impact that products have in the world, in the marketplace, and most especially with people. So with all of that said, Ramy, please tease us a little bit about Impossible Innovation and drop those links on us for listeners who want to go deeper into all the great work that you're doing.
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about what I do, how I do it, if you have questions, check out my website. It's impossibleinnovation.com. If you want to learn more about the masterclass with the one slide MVP and how to implement that, it's the link is right there on the website. And actually, Brian, just for your listeners, I'm providing a 20% off the masterclass with the discount code podcast. So if anybody listening and if you're really interested in taking the masterclass, thank Brian for the discount.
Yes, Ramy, I'm so appreciative of that. Listeners, if you've been listening to this episode and thinking, gosh, it would be amazing to have someone like Ramy looking at my business, but how the heck am I going to afford a fractional chief product officer? Well, the truth is, Ramy, that's what I love about your work, is it's also super accessible via that masterclass. Listeners, this is your chance to really get in there. It's cool seeing it on his website because it teases a lot of the things we talked about today. The one slide MVP masterclass, the most powerful research and development tool. I love the way you summarize it, Ramy. Save time, save money, delight customers. That's what business is all about. So listeners, you just heard it from Ramy himself, how to get that discount there. We're also dropping it down below in the show notes, which is also where you're going to find all of the links to go deeper into Ramy's work. We'll be linking straight to impossibleinnovation.com. You can click through from there. Or if you want to reach out to Ramy personally, and even just something as simple as thanking him for coming on the show today, we're linking to his personal LinkedIn down below in the show notes. No matter where it is that you're tuning in, you'll also find that coupon code of podcast in the show notes. So don't forget that if you're checking out his masterclass. Otherwise, Ramy, on behalf of myself and all the listeners all around the world, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Thanks everybody for listening.